doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
So my question overall is, during the debate you had with Ralph Norman last night, you had answered a question about Taiwan and the South China Sea and whether it being a national security issue for the United States. And to your reply, you said that you were uninformed or not informed on national security issues, but that you support the military. And my question is, are there any concerns about credibility in the U.S. Senate for someone who doesn't have the experience in issues like national security or for issues like geopolitics and things like that? Because there are votes that go toward funding wars or declaring wars. And if you're a deciding vote in that factor, how can we trust as constituents that you'll make the right decision if you're not informed on national security issues at this moment in time?
That's a fair question, right? But I answered it honestly because I'm not a national security expert. Lindsay was, right? Because he talked a lot about national security. You know why? He spent 33 years in the Air Force. He had a military background. So he had a lot of foreign relations, and that was his focus. To me, as I walked around this room and I've asked people, are y'all concerned about Taiwan? You know what they said? No. They're concerned about the price of groceries, the price of gas, rising health care costs. Is national security important? Absolutely. Can I learn? I'm smart. Yes, I'll learn. I'll become informed. Everybody has a first day on the job. President Trump, was he a politician? Has he done a good job? Yes, he has. So that's my answer. So, but I will always be honest.
Є розбіжність в цьому з Михайлом. Але в усьому іншому я хочу сказати, що ми побачили народження політика, який проголосив гучно своє бажання бути гравцем в політичному просторі. Він чітко окреслив той напрям, в якому він буде рухатися. Наступний його крок, на мою думку, полягатиме в прагненні заручитися підтримкою світових техногігантів. Твіт про велич Ілона Маска, там ще стоїть Алекс Карп, і, звісно, це засновник Палантіра. І, звісно, ще, не знаю, чи Михайло вже знайомий з ним, не хватає в цій тріаді злих світових геніїв Пітера Тіля. Чому злих? Тому що в той час, коли всі абсолютно справедливо визнають їх беззаперечні досягнення в світі технологій, їхні погляди цих людей на світ суспільного і державного розвитку є, скажімо так, вкрай не ортодоксальними і схильними до якоїсь нової форми технологічного тоталітаризму. Але це інше питання. Михайло, звісно, я не думаю, що він прагне побудувати тоталітаризм як політик, але це ті стосунки, які гарантують йому безпеку, фінансову і технологічні можливості.
Giving an imminent threat? Maybe not, probably not. But this is a tense region. Everybody is quite nervous. And so if anyone sees actions that they feel like could be a threat to them, there are reactions.
גם ראש הממשלה, גם מהרמטכ"ל, יש סכנה ממשית לחיי החיילים, יורים, הורגים, זה לא מספיק.
אבל זה לא מה שהיה גם לפני חודש.
מסכים לגמרי, אני חושב שראש הממשלה, וזה פורסם, אמרתי לו את זה לא פעם ולא פעמיים, טועה בנושא הזה. קו האדום שלי זה פגיעה בחיילים, ואני מתפלל כמובן לרפואתם. יש לי בן שעכשיו נכנס, יוצא בסיירת מלבנון, ואני אומר לך, הוא והחברים שלו ראויים לכך שאנחנו נפציץ בבירות, שאנחנו נכסח, שאנחנו נשתגע.
אבל זה לא קורה, השר בן גביר, אתה חלק מה...
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us this morning. I appreciate you coming on. I know there's a lot to choose from, and we're going to work hard to make sure you get a good show today. I have a great show today. I've got Mark Castillon from Louisiana, who's going to talk to us about what's going on behind the scenes at the Pentagon in the second segment. A lot of drama, and today's show is really to help you understand, as we always do, what's happening behind the scenes as we fight for this great republic. And as we released yesterday on the Georgia show, really disturbing. I may play a little bit of that a little later. Disturbing comments from Lou Dobbs years ago, talking about we have to deal with these election machines because they're going to destroy our country, and why is nobody doing something about it? So we're going to delve into all of this. Want to say hello to the crew in the chat. You're cleared hot. Check out whatfinger.com. It's a great aggregator site. They put up a lot of our content, and we have a partnership with them. You saw Kuleba, the guy from Ukraine, who's a former official. Let me read you what my source in Kiev told me about him. Kuleba is Mudak and Dobadov. Not what that is. He is zero. His father placed him into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's a zero. He is a grifter. He is also an Aspen agent. And then Fedorov, the guy who's former defense minister, he says is a corruptioner working for Soros, obtained reserve from Renaissance Foundation of Ukraine money, works for Soros and Milonov, an agent also. So there you go. Ukraine, we know what's going on there. And by the way, we have Pete Blaber in the second hour, Ukraine SitRep, pretty disturbing and impactful segment. You're going to want to watch that. Darlene in South Carolina doesn't know anything about world affairs. Don't you feel good in South Carolina that she knows absolutely nothing about what's going on in the world? I guess that's what you want when you need another Lindsey Graham. You can tell what to do. And then Syria and Lebanon are in Israel's crosshairs, and we will discuss that a little later in the show. But I'm your host, L. Todd Wood. Today is August 20th. Here's your mission brief. Syria, Israel, Turkey, the new Iran. We're going to I want to zero in on that because it's a story we've been reporting. The national debt bomb crossed 40 trillion and nobody cares. Unrestricted economic warfare against Iran, says Trump. Lagarde admits that Europe is dying and what they're doing is not working, maybe because they don't want it to work. Though they've got to get rid of those Christians, right? Trump pauses Canadian tariffs. Looks like he got the Keystone Pipeline back up and running. So with all of that, we've got a big show. We got Mark Castillon coming on shortly, and then Pete Blaber later in the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back on the SCIF.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience, and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
The pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today, and let's get to work in your financial future.
Okay, welcome back to the SCIF. I want to give a shout out to the Wellness Company. If you go to twc.health/CDM, use promo code CDM, all kind of stuff's going on. You got foodborne parasites, you got this bacteria that caused a lot of people to get really sick. What if that happens to you at your home, or what if it happens to you on the road, on vacation, or your son or daughter or your mother gets sick from one of these illnesses, and you need the drugs, and maybe you're somewhere that you can't get them quickly. If you have that emergency travel emergency medical kit, you'll be able to do it. So go to twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM. Check out all the emergency medical kits and protect your family. All right, I want to bring in Mark Castillon because a lot of stuff is going on behind the scenes at the Pentagon. A lot of battles are raging that you may not be aware of. So I want Mark to help explain what's going on. Thanks for coming on this morning, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in the building, as they say. I mean, you've got the DEI push, you've got the JAGs going after the warfighters, you've got the bad command structure, and people really not taking care of the troops. Tell us the issues that you really want to get out there.
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is talk about some of the changes that have happened and some of those good things that have happened in the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And let's start with COVID. Okay, we use that as an example of someone made a decision, the science was behind it, right?
Yeah.
And what they did was there was no homework done on it. There was no charges. There was really no real research, but their decision was made without much input across the entire force to put these people out. No due process, no rights, no trials, no rebuttals. You were just told, guess what? You're not in anymore. Retirements, futures, lives. And we see a reversal of that, right? And so what does that tell us? That tells us that the Pentagon can make change, that they can notice that things are wrong and that things can be fixed. Since this administration has been in, they have put policies in place that would have kept some of these things from happening over the last 5 to 10 years. The problem is what happens to those folks that were entrapped by that kind of stuff? What are we doing about them? Okay, what are we doing about these folks that got caught up in these administrative debacles that destroyed their careers when they're in sanctuary, ready to retire? Okay, because and that's what we're dealing with now. And we have these people who are there right now. And you and I have talked about this before. These DEI apparatchiks, they're still there. Yeah. And they're being revealed. A couple of weeks ago, we saw that kind of the conversation with that official in the Pentagon who says, as soon as this administration leaves, they have a friendly administration. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to roll back everything, and they're going to do the same thing.
Yeah. So is it? I mean, I wonder what the underlying agenda specifically on the vaccines is. Is it some kind of bioweapon research and they needed a clinical trial with no informed consent? Is it even more nefarious as that, or is it just money that they wanted to push this vax to make money? I mean, what do you think?
I think at our level, when it comes to what we faced in the DOW now, right? I think what we faced is compliance. Yeah. And an idea of you will do what we tell you, okay? Yeah. You will accept people in combat arms. You will accept people who will come on a gun line and can't pick up a round. Yeah. Or can't move a cannon. Yeah. Or can't do a 12-mile road march with a 50, 60-pound rucksack in 2.5 hours. You will accept that. And it just so happens that the people that happen to be part of the COVID debacle were the same people who were fighting for the standard, ensuring that our warfighters were prepared to fight, right? Yes. But that's the thing. What labels do you give those COVID people? They just didn't take the vaccine, right? What about the service member who was a witness in a harassment or misconduct investigation of a senior leader? What happens to that person's career when they're charged with something and they're labeled and they lose their livelihood, they lose their retirement? What happens to that person that we just talked about that's enforcing the standards? But then he may be labeled a toxic male, right? Yeah. What happens to those folks? My point is these folks exist. I'm one of them.
Yeah, I know you are.
And what I have found and why I'm doing what I'm doing is that I'm not alone. And I'm not a millionaire. I don't necessarily have influence. What I try to do is write about these concerns, and they're not just mine. I've talked about other people. You know, one of the gentlemen I mentioned, Carl Wheelis, this guy was owed a medical retirement. They denied his medical retirement. He didn't get his medical retirement. He goes to the Board of Correction. The Board of Correction actually says he's right. The Army denies him. He goes and does a federal lawsuit. They go along with him too, and they still don't give him his medical retirement. So
wow. that you know what that is? That's just revenge. You know, I mean, that's just hardcore human, evil right there.
Is it because you're fighting back, right? I mean, when you fight back, do you get destroyed in this way? Because administratively, they don't need much, right? They can stack everything against you. You know, sure. You get an investigation that they appoint the investigators, right? They get findings. Then based on those findings, they take action. They give you a bad evaluation. They don't retain you. They separate you. How do you fight that? You go to IG. The IG denies you. You go to Board of Correction. Board of Correction tells you go to IG. You go do a federal lawsuit. The federal lawsuit says go to the Board of Correction. So you never get a chance to defend yourself, your reputation, who you are, and it follows you for the rest of your life, Doc. You know, these labels follow you.
Yeah. So all those people are still in there. On that question, I know as some are revealed, they get removed. But where do you think we are in that process of getting rid of a lot of these people?
I think that's one of the things that I feel a desperation about. To some degree, personally, I don't feel like there's a lot of hope for a lot of the individuals. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I think when you fight, you're going to end up bankrupt and heartbroken.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I do know that this administration is trying to do the right thing. I know that the Secretary of War has been through this, what we're talking about. The man was labeled as an extremist for his political views and removed from a mission in Washington, in D.C.
Yes.
But without any charges, just, but he was able to survive that because of where he was in his life. And there's nothing wrong with that. My point is this. The desperation I have is, look at the world we live in. You and I both know the possibilities of what we're on the verge of.
Yes, I know.
And what that means is warfighters. Where are warfighters if the people who have done what they've done over the last 10, 15 years, if they return? What situation is this nation in order to fight? And I think that's the desperation I feel right now is this administration.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the ultimate goals, is to weaken us so that we can't fight whatever war is coming, whatever they have planned. In my opinion.
But that framework, in order to rid ourselves of these parasites, that has to be done when we have the ability to do it.
Yes.
You look at some of the research that I've done. You look at some of the signatures on some of these administrative documents. If they're not in the administration now, or part of the DOW ether, they were part of lawsuits against the president for trans rights, identity politics. These people are still there. They are the people that put this in place, and so they're making decisions right now in Board of Corrections. They're making decisions across the force. They're still there, and if we don't take, and I say we, but if our leaders don't take action to stop this, this won't end. And we'll have warfighters who will lose warfighters because of it.
I wonder why the Pentagon leadership hasn't taken a more direct role in this, and set up a shop right under Hegseth and said, "I'm going to review every case."
Listen, you got to. Not every case is illegitimate, right? There things go on out there, and people should be punished for doing things they're not supposed to do, right? I mean, I think we're. Dignity.
But there should be a bias. There should be a bias towards taking a hard look, right?
I think it's smart for this administration to do an 18-month, very limited review over actions over the last 10 years, included but not limited to people who requested trial by court-martial and didn't get it, who have asked for FOIAs on boards and hearings that were never given, or folks nearing retirement that didn't have a hearing or anything before they lost their retirements. I think that's wise, because if you're thinking 8,000 for COVID, how could we be thinking another 2,500, 3,000 of folks that were put out because they just didn't agree with where we were going and were targeted and labeled, and now they're supposed to be silenced when they're labeled? Because you see this as much as I do, the nameless people who get on social media and attack people that are trying to make positive change for the force and influence positively our country. They have the ability of being nameless, and they can label us, they can attack us, they can say whatever they want, and hope to silence us because of the labels and silence what we're trying to do, which essentially, I believe, is trying to fight for our country.
So on that note, there's a big effort among the JAG Corps, it seems, to stop the initiative and the creativity and the risk-taking of wartime commanders on the ground, or even NCOs in the field. What's your take on that? I don't know if that's your bag, baby, but what do you think?
I think it's part of his power. I think it's influence. How many commanders did you see in your time that relied solely on their opinion in decisions, whether that be in combat or not? How many stories have you heard about folks firing their weapons in the global war on terror and having an immediate investigation on why there was a discharge? Is the reliance on the JAGs because there's a fear by leaders of punishment? And where does that punishment come from? Where does that framework come from? Is it because of that legal bureaucracy? Is this where there is the response that we're getting from them now? The loss of that power, the potential loss of that power and influence? Think about it. What decisions did some of these commanders make without that recommendation from that non-combat arms guy?
Yeah, no kidding. Speaking of combat arms, I haven't been tracking this as well as I should, but where do we stand on that issue? Do you know, as far as women in combat roles and all that? What's the latest that HEXF's put out?
What I have seen is the intent to basically enforce standards. And I don't necessarily know on the ground how that's working, but from what I have heard, and the folks that I've talked to, is there's an excitement, there's a positivity. We see it in recruiting numbers. I said as a former recruiting commander, when people feel like there's a positive force in office that represents what they feel as a country, people join, right? But my problem is this: we have policy, we have intent, but how do we follow that up? If we go out in the field, we're shooting artillery, we shoot artillery tables. I got to make sure I got the right leaders to evaluate. I got to make sure I got the soldiers on the ground that are doing it, right? Shoot, move, and communicate. But is that really happening right now throughout this multi-billion dollar force we have? Are the people on the ground canceling out? Like I think one of the things I saw you write, the commissars. How we can't canceling these folks out, because essentially, if we don't do that, we're gonna have people in infantry companies that can't hack it. We're gonna have people who literally will say to you, they're on hormones, and so they can't function. They can't go to the field. They can't deploy, and that was allowed.
Yeah, I know.
And so I think we need the people on the ground. We need some type of structure, like we just talked about for the review of administrative actions. We need a framework to ensure that these policies go from that senior level down to the ground. And those JAGs that you talked about, I don't think they're necessarily our friends in that effort.
I agree. Anything else, Mark, that you want to get out on this?
Yeah, listen, I think that my intent here is really to shine a light on some of the things that a group of service members have gone through, how it's affected them, how it's affected their families, how it affects the force, right? And I think that the only way that we can see change in this is if we get enough influence with the powers that be to look at this comprehensively. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I don't think that we can fix every problem that we have. I know that they have done some things, and we talked about COVID, that can do this. I just think that there needs to be a framework and a limited scope review of some of the things that happened under that previous era to fix wrongs that were, that were right wrongs, and set a standard and precedent for the future.
Yeah,
and then we can pray.
And accountability, there has to be. It's like when you spank a kid; they have to know there's a consequence, right?
Right.
I mean, so where can people follow you, my friend?
So they can catch me at X at MW Stormwatch and at stormwatch.org on X.
Mark, thank you. I want to have you back. Take care. And
yes, appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Putting out some great stuff on Armed Forces Press. So appreciate that.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, take care.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience. and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
And by the way, I wanted to say I'm starting my journey with Sean. I'm going to be getting a Ghost phone and then upgrading to a Ghost computer soon, because I am going to unplug for the Matrix. And you can follow me along on my journey. So mark37.com/CDM is where you want to go to do that. Find the webinar, sign up for the webinar, and learn everything you need to know to get started. And then you can also sign up for a free 30-minute consultation on privacy there at mark37.com/CDM. But I'm looking forward to it, and I have been worried about privacy for some time. So I'm going to be taking the plunge and changing my life and unplugging from the Matrix, and I'm really looking forward to it. So maybe you can join me.
A warm welcome here at the National Press Club. Welcome to the journalists, welcome to the Embraer team, and welcome to the other guests that we have here. We're going to announce, and as some of you guessed it right when they came in, the first E2 order by an American operator. And that operator is Avello. We believe this is really a strategic shift to unlock profitability for the customer. I'm very pleased that we have Andrew Levy here as the CEO of Avello, and I'm very pleased to give the stage to share a little bit more about what Avello is going to do with the E2 195. Thank you very much.
Couldn't be more excited to be here as part of this historic announcement. We have such a great cultural fit as companies, so we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Okay, welcome back to the SCIF. I want to walk through some stories here. Christine Lagarde admits what Europe has been doing ain't working, and Europe's economy is dying. Of course, that has nothing to do with destroying its energy, destroying its military, destroying its culture, and destroying its business innovation. You know, I speak with some people in Germany pretty regularly, including one young person, and they are telling me that all of Germany, all the youth, are simply wanting everything given to them, and they don't want to be fired. And it's horrible if somebody fires you, and you have to be protected. And I mean, Europe is essentially a slave serfdom that the elites are running, and they're pushing for a war to stay in power. It's really dark, but you need to be aware of it. So we're going to continue to talk about what's happening in Europe. Well, here's another one. Our debt just hit 40 trillion and nobody cares. We're headed to some kind of crisis, folks. I wrote about it in my book Currency over a long time ago. The book is still extremely prescient. So check out Currency if you want. I'll bring that up. You can find the book anywhere books are sold, but we are heading for some kind of crisis. Actually, I've lost that thing, so I can't bring it up. And Trump is talking about it in the interest rates and in the debt service costs, trying to get the rates down. But I don't know where this is going, but we have a Congress who will not govern, who will not protect the country. I think that's pretty obvious. And it's not just with the debt, it's in many other areas as well. Israeli Defense Minister Katz taunts Turkey, Erdogan, saying, what did he say? Israel will not allow any entity to threaten its security. This is after it bombed Syria, an airfield that they said Turkey was putting troops on. Turkey denies it and said it would be preferable for Erdogan to continue delivering empty, delusional speeches against Israel in the Turkish parliament rather than testing Israel's resolve to defend itself. So more taunting after Katz said, Jerusalem is not Constantinople. We're not another collapsing Christian empire. So take that as you will. Here's one you need to be aware of. Trump declares economic D-Day on Iran, most crushing sanctions we will see. We prefer this, as we've said, to a conflict on the ground where Americans will die and we will spend money and treasure we don't have. So we prefer the blockade to continue, and we want a good outcome for the United States. We were against this war to begin with, but now that we're in it, we want a good outcome and not a collapse of American power. Trump pauses tariffs on Canada. It looks like he may have gotten the Keystone XL pipeline back up and running that Biden shut down. We will see. That would be important for American jobs, for American energy, and to really support the people in Alberta and Canada as well. So we may have Mark Crouchu on this week to discuss what's going on in Canada. Need to get him back on the show. Also in Israel, you can find us on our Israeli site, Zionism.com. Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister, says we have lost the United States, and they are putting out a bold vision for a new government in Israel as elections approach. And he is essentially saying Netanyahu's starting this war in Syria against Turkey and Syria to try to get reelected. So there you go. All of that's out in the open. You can make up your own decision, but we want you to be aware of those stories. I need your help. If you haven't gone to my.cdm.press, that's my.cdm.press, and signed up for our no ad subscriptions, we really need you to do this. We need the financial support. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. You get access to all of our content. I mean, we put out a dozen articles already, and it's only 10:30 in the morning. So we're doing the work, we're putting out the content, we're providing a really good service. You get something from this. As you support us financially, you get no advertisements popping up on your phone or on your laptop or on your other mobile device. No video ads, no display ads. You can scroll just right through the news. So please go to my.cdm.press and subscribe there. It's really important as you help us stay on the growth path that we have worked hard to stay on. So we'll be right back on the SCIF. Don't go anywhere. Be right back after this break.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place Your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slog, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. One of the early stories that we were early on, and we've provided many examples of this, like the Igor Kolomoisky's story that we ran in 2019 about him laundering money through Privatbank. Well, he was just, the big story was 2 weeks ago or last week, just broke. So we were 8 years early on that story, 7 years. We're very early on Ukraine. We know a lot about it, and that's why we've been pushing hard to end this war, because we don't believe this war is about helping Ukraine or its people. It's about territory, resources, and diminishing Russia. It has nothing to do with freedom or ask anyone in Ukraine. Ask the people, which you're going to see in this video toward the end with Pete Blaber, about the mobilization and forced conscription and press ganging that's going on with Ukrainian citizens. I mean, this is a depopulation exercise, so someone else can come in and take the land, and the Christians won't be on it. That's what they want. So this is Ukraine SitRep with Pete Blaber. We cut it yesterday. I think it's really timely and really good. So I hope you enjoy this. So I'm back with my colleague Pete Blaber on Ukraine SitRep, and Pete was just saying that he's getting feedback. This is the only show that actually tells the truth about what's happening in Ukraine. And we're really proud of that, and we want to continue putting out really good information. And Pete, we've got a situation, in my view, where we're months away from a possible nuclear exchange. You've got the UK providing weapons to Ukraine that is launching on Moscow. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, didn't mince any words yesterday, saying we're going to respond when we want to, and Britain is a combatant. And then you've got Fedorov saying they're going to bring in ballistic missiles. I've got some comments out of Moscow I want to get to, but I've got a lot lined up for you. I'll turn it over to you and I'll interject. Go ahead.
Yeah. So 2 days ago, the Sunday Times in London published an article citing Armed Forces Ukraine sources who told them that for the first time, British UAVs were used by Kyiv to launch strikes deep into Russian territory, and those were 1,100 miles in. And you know what's so hard to believe about that is that Britain would do something like that. This was cutting edge technology, fresh off the assembly line. It was not sent by FedEx or UPS to Ukraine. It was sent on military aircraft with a team of civilian tech advisors, spare parts. They were there to monitor the software, monitor the launch, and of course, military escorts too. So, you've got what we never hear, thanks to the mainstream media, the global mainstream media, is what goes on in Russia. And, Sergei Mironov is the head of, I think, the Fair Russia Party. And he's already saying we should fire Oreshnik missiles at the drone factory in Britain, and it's the same with Germany. Germany's got pumping out drones, same thing, and technology, and sending it right to Ukraine with their advisors. So, what they're saying is reality, and the anger is real. And as you mentioned, Sergei Lavrov yesterday, as he always does, came out and just stated the fact, which is, Russia has the right to consider Britain's involvement in strikes against Russia as participation in the war, and international law backs him up. And of course, what does that mean? It means all the resulting consequences. Be prepared for the consequences. So, as you've asked the question, what's the logic of why they would do something this seemingly pig-headed? None of the EU countries is in any way, shape, or form capable of going to war with Russia or defending against a war with Russia. But to really understand, I think you have to look at the history, both long-term and short-term, and the long-term goes back a long way. We've mentioned it a few times. It really crystallized in the 1830s with the Great Game in Afghanistan, and what was then considered the crown jewel of the crown, which was India. And Britain was obsessed with thinking Russia was going to attack South and take over India. But it came to its head 10 years later in 1850s with the war in Crimea. And that's where Britain and Russia went to direct war against each other. And it was a brutal war. France was involved, the Ottoman Empire on the side of the Brits against Russia. And, everyone's heard of the Charge of the Light Brigade and Florence Nightingale. They all came out of that. That's the long term. What that led to was a deep cultural hatred for Russia by British governments in those years. It's important to point out, the British citizenry does not walk around today and go, we got to get back at Russia for Crimea and what happened during the Great Game. But it's kept alive by these globalist politicians as the only straw they have to explain what we just talked about, the logic of why they're poking the bear and tempting nuclear war. The short term is also important. It goes back to that IMF loan that kicked off everything in 2013. Yanukovych turned it down. The EU saw it as the integral piece to their growth to bring Ukraine into the fold. But their reasons weren't, to help Ukraine or help fellow EU citizens. Their reasons were all greed and nefarious. And we've laid that out, the censorship industrial complex, but more than that, this massive money laundering enterprise that is immune to international courts, and international banks can do whatever it wants.
It's organized crime. It's organized crime free zone, man. I mean, they can do whatever they want.
And they've been doing it since 14. And it's not a stretch to say all of those, the current EU leaders were elected thanks to that censorship industrial complex. They control the narrative in Europe with that complex. They control the money. As another example of proof of that being real, Viktor Shokin, that prosecutor general, just came out with his book this week. I'm about halfway through it. He's the one made famous by Joe Biden, who bragged about firing Shokin for investigating Burisma, which, and you can't make this up, which was a private gas company that at the time employed Hunter Biden for $1 million a year, despite the fact Hunter had never stepped foot in Ukraine, still has never stepped foot, and had never worked in the energy business. But what Shokin lays out in the book is just proof positive of everything we've been talking about. And specifically where it matters for us is he talks about the $350 billion in U.S. taxpayer money. That's our money that was actually recycled through political and globalist networks. And he names names, meetings, dates that all line up with what we know. And remember the Ways and Means investigation by the House Republicans into Hunter Biden, used all of Biden's records as vice president, all of his correspondence, and what they found was everything lines up with what he said. But again, you have to say that a couple times. Recycling our money, our taxpayer money, for political and globalist networks and reasons, to help elections both in the U.S. and Europe, to censor information, and to put money, line the pockets of the politicians both then and now.
Well, people don't realize that they were the campaign against Bernie Sanders for the DNC was run out of Ukraine, and when that when that ran its course, then they switched the whole apparatus to Trump to try to help Hillary Clinton. I mean, they admitted it. Artem Sitnik, the head of the NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, said we were helping Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So it is talk about interfering in elections. I mean, American general president elections, general elections. I mean, they were tipping the scale, and now we funded them, and now this war is impacting us. So I'm sorry, I had to get that off my chest. Go ahead.
It's great context. And he also talks about Biden, who named himself the vice king in Ukraine and then was known as the vice king, and that's vice for vice president / king, which just is and we're going to play that clip in a second here. But, Shokin says Biden wielded extraordinary influence over Petro Poroshenko, who was the president at the time. He's the one who said in words that we must crush Donbass. Their children won't go to school. Their elderly won't have pensions. They'll never leave their basements because we're going to defeat them. And Biden is whispering in his ear the whole time. And did you have that clip?
Yeah, I do. And I'll just say that I think they've been taken down, but years ago, we reported the tapes that came out after that of Biden and Poroshenko talking about how they're going to go after Trump and everything they're going to do. And those audio tapes came out. There may be some still on BitChute, but I think YouTube took them down. But yeah, here's the video of Biden. Let me hit play here.
I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was 6 hours. I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
So there you go.
Yeah. So you can't make this up. While he's saying that prosecutor, who is Shokin, the author of the book, is investigating Burisma, the private company that's paying his son $1 million a year. It's just hard to believe, but more important than just, that specific instance, it shows you the control, the intrusive control over what was happening in Ukraine in those years, 13, 14, 15, and 16, and all the way up to today.
Yes.
When you touch a rolling ball, you change its trajectory and you change where it ends up. Where we are today with the Ukraine war is a direct result of the Biden specifically, because he was the quarterback along with Jake Sullivan during the Obama administration, and then during his term, 4-year term, he was, and along with Jake Sullivan, were the architect of everything that happened in this war. So, where we are today, again, the reason this war is so corrupt, this propaganda war, and it has to be stopped, is because the only reason we're where we are today is because of these intrusive globalists. And again, a lot of commentators on what happened like to say the U.S. was involved in overthrowing, the government of Ukraine and was involved in the start of the war. Well, it wasn't the U.S. It wasn't we, the people of the U.S. It was the Obama and Biden administration and their unelected officials like Jake Sullivan, Victoria Nuland, who made this war what it is today. And so it's important historical to see that, to see how cocky he is there, admitting that he fired the prosecutor looking into the company that's paying off his son for doing nothing. It just shows how cocky they were, how convinced they were that they were above the law and that nothing could touch them. And unfortunately, Biden, who could be arrested for just that. It's classic play to pay, breaks every foreign business law that we have that regular businessmen are bound by today.
Not to mention his son was taking money and that he was in on the deal,
Yeah. So, again, touching the rolling ball, you change it. And think about that. He fired Shokin, who was obviously trying to end corruption in Ukraine. What's the biggest problem Ukraine has today? It's corruption. And you have to, and this is why you change the trajectory of the ball and where it ends up. Ukraine today is just a result of all these senseless decisions and intrusions by foreign politicians, the Obama-Biden administration up till 2024, and now today, in the EU all along, but now today, 100% the EU and EU leaders who will continue to create this mess. And as you said, put us on the threshold of nuclear war. Yep.
The issue with Hunter Biden in the laptop, Pete, is that now he's out trying to whitewash that whole history and saying it never happened, which is a bunch of garbage. And I spent time going through that laptop in 2020 before the election. And it wasn't just Ukraine that Biden and Hunter were doing. This was a global RICO operation to use the assets of the U.S. government for their own personal business practices and to coerce nations like Romania and others to do things to benefit them financially. So, and to benefit the Obama agenda. But anyway, back to you.
Yeah, no, it's important. And again, just as proof of that, we've got a little clip or a little picture that's a news report that just came out from outside Kyiv. There was a shootout between employees of what are termed two different fraudulent call centers. They're not call centers. This just is another empirical example of the thousands of workers in Kyiv who are behind this censorship industrial fraudulent election complex. And, there's accountants, there's communication people, there's political science, majors who focus on certain countries. And that's what they're trying to protect. That's the crown jewel of the current, EU leadership that they're so desperate to protect. And they're willing to risk everything to protect it. The next thing I have is just, why is that so important? It's an interview Abdi Aladinov did just yesterday, and he's we've had him on before in other stories. He's the Russian Special Forces general. He's been talking about casualties since 2022. We've had a number of his clips on. He never exaggerates. He talks about body counts. He talks about battles, what happened, and his estimate is that Ukraine has lost upwards of or almost 2.5 million people, and that's non-combat capable. That's killed and injured beyond capacity to fight anymore. And why is that important? Because, just the same thing we talk about all the time. This war has to end. It's a propaganda war. It's a fake war caused by the likes of Joe Biden's and Jake Sullivan's and Ursula von der Leyen and all these EU leaders. And someday historians will look back on this and not just look at them, but look at all of us and say, okay, well, if you knew that was happening, how could you let the war continue? How could you let this wholesale slaughter of good men from both countries continue? And there's no answer to that except greed and politics. And it needs to be internalized. And I'd take it to the next step with President Trump. We talked on our last show about some sources close to him who've told us he understands what's going on. He's waiting for the right time, but the right time is going to pass us by in not too long, the way things are going right now. And President Trump needs to kind of come to a closure on whose side are we on. We can't keep playing this game between Russia and Ukraine because it's just making things worse. And as we've advocated many a times, because of the way this was started, because of the way it's continued, from 2014 to Boris Johnson tubing any potential for peace to today with this poking the bear with long-range cutting-edge technology. We need to come out and stop it. And the best way to do that is to normalize relations with Russia, recognize them economically, diplomatically, and politically, and end this insanity as we should have a long time ago.
Well, you always say, Pete, say it out loud. So let's say it out loud. You have a situation where the UK and other countries in Europe, NATO members, are combatants now in a war against Russia, the Russian Federation. Russia has the legal right to strike back. That is the UK, Germany, wherever. They're NATO. We're part of NATO. That's an Article 5 attack. Hopefully, Trump wouldn't respond, but we're in a situation where they're going to pull us into a nuclear exchange. Let's say that part out loud. They're going to pull us into a nuclear exchange. It has to stop. And Trump can stop this by stop funding it. And you know what? We have troops all over Europe. Has anybody thought of that? I mean, they're going to be killed. I mean, they're going to be hit. So either get out of NATO or stop the war. That's where I'm at that point now. I mean, why are we in NATO if they're going to pull us into a nuclear war? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, agree. And as we've said, in our source close to President Trump said, he knows, and we know, that every one of these EU leaders did everything they could to ensure he wasn't elected, both in 2020 and 2024. They're not his friends. And of course, we're not talking about the countries of Germany, Britain, and France. We're talking about the globalists who have taken over those countries as the globalist politicians who've taken over and who run those countries. In the same way that I separated, we, the United States, were not a party to starting that war. That was the Obama and Biden administrations. And it doesn't matter what their politics are. You have to call them out for it because history doesn't lie and empirical evidence doesn't lie. So, to me, it comes back down to President Trump right now. He needs to make that decision. It will be one of the greatest historical decisions I think he's ever made. He's always talking about legacy. This could be his legacy. But mostly it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for Ukraine, the right thing for Russia, and the right thing for the global world and peace in that world.
For the human race, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have two things. I have one more. Well, that last video was in Russian, so I didn't have it in video. So I just had the still, but I have another still of another Russian video, and then I have Fedorov. So I don't know if you want either of those up.
Which one? The foreign mercenary one?
There's that one.
This one is good just because it's what we're talking about. So this is a French reporter who's been back and forth in Donbass. We've referenced him a few times, been on the ground numerous times, and he just came out with one of the estimates that a lot of people, a lot of my sources agree with. There's about 25,000 mercenaries fighting for Ukraine. Yesterday, actually day before with time changes, up to 20 Colombian mercenaries were killed in a missile attack. They were in a cafe on the outskirts of Donbass. All their vehicles were parked out on the side, and they were all killed. And once again, people ask, what are these Colombians doing over there? Why are there so many Colombian mercenaries? And quite frankly, I've been following the mercenary story. The number of Colombian mercenary deaths is now at least 2,000.
Wow.
And Russia has been publishing these with names, which always shows you that, that's what a confirmed kill is, when you stand over the body, take out their personal belongings, see their names on their license or whatever their ID card is. And so, you have to ask the question, what's the connection there? And to me, it's another example of this globalist money laundering network. That same 350 billion gets laundered over to pay these mercenaries, to incentive recruiters in countries where, for various reasons, unemployment being one, it's easy to recruit people and to delude them that they're going off on some adventure, that a once in a lifetime adventure. And, that's what the Colombians are doing there. But it's another empirical example of the trail of this money that gets laundered out of Ukraine.
Well, the Colombians are very well trained, especially in mountainous warfare, guerrilla tactics, because they've been fighting FARC for a long time. And I'm told also that a lot of these Colombian mercs are FARC members looking to get the drone technology to use against the Colombian government. So you have a situation where Latin America has gone full swing to the right. 7 out of 8 countries have gotten rid of their, or I think it's 7 out of 9 or whatever the total is, gotten rid of their leftist governments. And now you have Ukraine essentially training these guerrillas to fight the government with drone tactics, which is very effective. So it's not a good situation. What is this Fedorov video? Did you want to play that? I don't have to.
Yeah, no, it's okay. He's just, it was just in there because his thing is corruption, also fighting corruption. But I added in the Joe Biden segment because it just shows that corruption is still front and center, the number one problem that ails Ukraine and really potentially holds them back from whatever potential economic, military greatness that they could achieve. It's just so deeply entrenched that you can't get anything done.
So I want to add something to this. Source sent me this morning. So the bounty hunters are going after, they're supposed to be an age of pulling them into the military, but you can make your own decisions on what's going on here. But I want to play 2 videos and then I'll bring up a still. So it looks like the bounty hunters are going after very young men, if that's even a man. And then here's the reaction of the mother. Literally gets down on their knees to pray that they don't take their son.
Wow.
So take a look at that. We're paying for that shit. I mean, that's, to me, I mean, this has to stop. This has to stop. That's all I got to say. Anything else you want to add?
No, good way to end it.
Yeah.
Humanity.
All right. We'll see you next time on Ukraine SitRep. Thank you, Pete.
Sounds good, Todd. Take care.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I think it was very informative. We'll be back tomorrow with some great guests on the SCIF, Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Come back tomorrow. See you later.